guys, this is Mike. I wanted to give a couple tips this morning on how to get people to negotiate less with you. All right, how to get people to negotiate less with you. So many of you, if you're a consultant, a coach, advisor, or you provide some type of service, what you'll notice, or what you've probably seen a lot, is there's a lot of people that would want to negotiate with you, and typically it's in their favor. So they normally want to negotiate the price down. Okay, here are some things that you can do, and I'm just gonna go off of the dome. Here are some things that you can do to get people to not negotiate with you as much. All right, so one of the first things that you have to do is you have to be able to communicate that it's an uneven exchange from the jump. Okay, and what I mean by that, I did a video on this before. What I mean by that is, when you tell someone what the actual price is for a service or whatever, you have to make sure that you're also communicating that the value exceeds what they're paying. The value always has to exceed what they're paying. Someone has to feel as though what they're receiving is worth more than what they're separating with. Okay, rule number one, you have to communicate that stuff. It's one of the reasons why a lot of coaches and consultants, what they do is they'll say, oh yeah, my course is $500. It's typically valued at $2,000, right? They need to show an uneven exchange in your favor from jump. Okay, so that is one of the first things that you have to do. You have to make sure that you're communicating that. All right, the second is you have to leave, you got to leave less room for negotiation. Okay, within your sales process, you need to get to a point where you're making the statement or the closing statement. All right, to get started, this is what's next. Like, you have to get there fast. What I've observed people doing is they will continue asking all of these open-ended questions. So do you have any more questions? Any more questions? Any more questions? So how do you feel? How do you feel? The more open-ended questions you ask, the more you're opening yourself up to being swayed by the other person that you're looking to do business with. Keep the questions closed. I remember I was a part of a business a while ago, and one of the things I learned was that when you ask certain questions, a lot of times you have to be very guided. You have to be very guided. So if you want to ask someone feedback on a presentation, don't ask them stuff like, oh, so how was the presentation? That's too open-ended. You have to ask them questions such as, good stuff, right? Now, mind you, again, that's very guided. Good stuff, right? Their response can only be right. It has to be an affirmative. It's an affirmative, okay? So first, make sure you're showcasing an uneven exchange. Second, you have to be able to reduce the number of openness in your discussion so that you can get to a point of closing as fast as possible. All right? The third is, you also have to make sure that when you're making statements about what someone is separating with, i.e. what they're paying, you have to also make it known that other people are willing to pay that. Okay, like an example would be like with me. I write a lot of proposals for some of the projects that I work on, and certain statements that I make, very true statements, but I have to make these statements so that they're aware of the fact that there are people out here that value my services at a certain rate. I would say somebody in your position, they would typically have this amount allocated. That's the language I use. I normally say they would typically have this amount allocated, or when we work together, this is the range that their project normally falls within. And I would say for you, your consideration should be directly in the center of that range. Because again, people want to know that other people trust me or trust you as much. That's what they want to know. That's the real reason why testimonials are so important. Testimonials are really important, not because of the words per se, but because people always want to know who else trusted you and was put in a better situation. who else trusted you and was put in a better situation? I think the most important part about that statement is who trusted you, right? Who trusted you? So you have to be able to communicate and use language to get them to know that others trust you. Okay, these are just a couple tactics to get you